Hey guys, welcome back. Bolt Spider here, and today we're going to be going over the meta for October of this new format because we're almost a week into it. So let's just go through and let's see what we can do for this meta. Now we have a lot of decks for this assortment, and let's get right into it. First off, our Destroy, Phoenix, Enforcer decks. These won't really take off depending on what deck it is, and we're only missing the Brave engine, so we can actually run a very viable Destroy, Phoenix, Enforcer engine. But most decks are going to opt to run it because it is a free interruption that also brings itself back. So I'm going to put it in not really its own tier. It's going to be kind of like a tier 0 because everything's going to be running it. Now, next up we have Albaz. This is not going to be competitive at all because we're missing so many pieces, and we have a structure deck coming that could fix it. Then we have Machina. This is more so Earth Machine. Earth Machine has been rogue for some time now, and it definitely deserves what it can do. It is a very cool deck that you can play. It is definitely quite interesting on how it functions with how there's so many different archetypes built into it. There's many of them. I think there's Machina, Infinite Track, and even some Train in it. So that's one thing that's very powerful of what the deck can do. Next up, we have Dinosaurs. This is more so rogue because Misk is still at 1. Even with the new Dinarufia cards coming out next year, not really going to change much. Then we have Sword Soul. This deck is going to be taking the charge for its opening week, and we're going to see a lot of Sword Soul everywhere, so it's going to be there as the prominent tier 1 deck in that tier. After that we have Burning Abyss. I don't really see this being competitive because it's just lacking, and you have Phantom Knights, which is way better than what BA can do. Next up we have Subterror. I haven't seen Subterror in like the past 6 months. I really haven't. Altergeist. Altergeist is more rogue than Subterror because I actually see Altergeist pop up here and there in a lot of deck profiles and a lot of videos. But with Subterror, it only has like one top, while Altergeist has many more. Next, we have Sky Striker. This is going to go in the tier 2 because with all the last format I've collected data, and it was an outstanding amount of Sky Striker being there with the representation, which was quite a bit. But then again, that reputation dropped. Then you started seeing more Sky Strikers starting to top here and there. Overall, Sky Striker is a tier 2 deck, and if they get anything else back, it is going to see more play because that's how it's always been. Every single list, they get something back, people play it again, and they stop playing it for something new. Then next list, something else comes back, and then they go back to it, and then it's just a constant cycle with the deck. Next up, we have Thunder Dragons. This deck, it's the worst of the bunch for the Eternal format decks, next to Orcust right now, because they don't have their power card, which is Thunder Dragon Colossus, and Orcust is missing their Orcust Harpor, which, in all seriousness, if Konami wants to shake up the format after this in January, those are 2 cards that they could bring back if they wanted to, along with many other cards. Next up, we have Cyber decks, Adagnister. This deck is more so rogue because I see it here and there, but it is a fragile glass cannon, which is good but also bad because it doesn't have, if your board gets break, you have a hard time just rebuilding that board. After that, we have Adamancipator, one of my favorite decks. Adamancipator, I would say, is down here, but I really want to put it to rogue because it has seen some good success along with the Prinkid engine. And if I were to play Adamancipator, I would have to play that build because it is a little more resilient to hand traps, and the Prinkid stuff alone gets out a hand trap from your opponent. Now we have Prank Kids. This deck surprisingly is still seeing play, and it's actually very powerful. It is more so a tier 2 deck from what I've seen, but it is a very high tier 2, maybe like a 1.5 at that point. Now, next up, wait, with Prank Kid, even though they have one Meow Meow, they could still do their plays, and if you don't have the hand trap, it definitely hurts. But then we're getting Brave token, that engine, and it's gonna bring Prank Kid back because it's gonna make it where they can get an Omni Negate so they could do their plays. Same thing with Phantom Knights. I see them more of a tier 2 because the same reason. They are a very powerful deck. They sadly lose to hand traps, but that's where the Brave token stuff comes in with all that, along with Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, because Prank Kid won't run it because they can't, or well, they can, but they choose not to. While Phantom Knights will, Sword Soul will, Striker will, pretty much a lot of these decks will. Next up, we have things like Dogmatic and Invoke Shaddoll. This is more so tier 2 or Rogue because it's had a falling out, but it is still a very prevalent deck. Next up, we have Drytron. 1 Eva doesn't really do much, and it's going to stay in tier 1 because of what it does. Dragon Link is a interesting deck because it has jumped between each one of these so many times, and right now, this time it's actually tier 2. With it being tier 2, is all of these decks are runner-up if they decide to do a massive hit list. Again, like they always seem to do in January. But overall, I want to see what a lot of these decks can do, like all these ones from Rogue down, because the tier 2 is already solidified. It's very good, and you have a wide range of options. Even now, with Phantom Knights getting a reprint of their Torn Scale, which made it extremely cheap, you can now almost build a full entire Phantom Knight deck, minus a couple cards. But Dragon Link, quite a bit of your cards got reprinted, but we're still waiting on Chamber Dragon Maid to get reprinted in Maximum Gold. Next up is Lyrillus. Lyrillus is a interesting deck. If I were to put it, it's not competitive, but there's many different versions, or a couple versions. You have Pure, then you have the Tri-Brigade build, which is Bird Up. I see Bird Up being more so tier 1, tier 2 than just Lyrillus itself. Sure, it is a utopic future with with a Robin, but it's not competitive right now. Next up, Speedroids never have been competitive. Evil Twin, I see them being Rogue because in Burst of Destiny, we are getting that Link 4 for them. So that's pretty nice. And I'm going to put Flunderies there as well because they really haven't had that much success in the OCG. But over here, it could be different. It could be a tier 2 deck. It could be a tier 1 deck. But for now, I'm going to put it as Rogue. Same for Salmon Great. So Salmon Great is one of those decks that has seen every single slot. I feel like it's more so Rogue because... Oh no, actually I'm going to put it up tier 2 because these two go hand in hand with what they have. They almost have the same amount of tops from the last format, so I could definitely say that these two right here will stay hand in hand for a while. Next up, Big Bad Tri-Brigade. This deck is 100% tier 1. Without a doubt, even with that tanky hit, it's still very powerful. Even with Barrage hit, you really didn't need Barrage. Most people were already cutting Barrage, like myself, and just going back to other cards you could do. I still run the Zodiac cards in here because Zeus is just free, and it is a very powerful card. So that's one thing definitely to take note of. After that, we have Infernoble. It's seen 1-2 tops at most, but I don't really see it going anywhere. After that, we have Eldritch. Eldritch variants. Not right now, but it is still there, so I'm gonna put it in the rogue category because I've seen it here and there. So that's definitely one thing to definitely take a look at. Pendulums, more so magicians, pendulum graph control. I definitely see this being a contender in this format because pendulum graph control is so strong with what they have: triple double iris, double skull acrobat, one skull acrobat, two skull acrobat, two skull acrobat. And next list, they're probably going to get the third skull acrobat back, and it's going to boost the consistency more because pendulum graph control, I played it in old Master Roll 3 and Master Roll 4. The deck is still deadly till today, and it might be a deck that I resort to for this format because it's actually quite fun to play too. Next up, we have Zodiac. This thing's dead. They hit Tenki, Barrage, Trident, Broadbull, and Rat. 2 limits and 3 bans. Sure, you have the power of Zeus, and it is a deck that can be rogue, but it's borderline for me, and yeah. And finally, we have Virtual World. With Virtual World not getting any hits, we're gonna be putting Virtual World at tier 1 because of how powerful it is. Virtual World more so can win games because it also runs Dragoon, and it can also have the option of running Destroy Phoenix, but overall Destroy Phoenix is going to be ran in tons of these decks. Like, I think out of the 10 tier 1, tier 2 decks, almost all it's going to be running it because that's how splashable it is. It's just a 5-card deck or 5-card engine. Along, if you want to run Verti, but you don't really have to, and it's just 1 extra deck space, which is pretty nice, and it summons itself back. The engine gets you a special summon from your hand during your draw phase, and if you have no cards in your hand, you get a draw too. The engine is so good, and I definitely could see them just changing how that engine will be. But anyways, this is my thoughts on the October 2021 meta going into the January. Going into just this new format is a little changing, but a few things have shifted here and there. But anyways, next format, I'm definitely going to put Prinkit and Phantom up at the top because Brave Token is a wonderful engine, but they might preemptively hit some decks like Prinkit again. But anyways, I've been Bolt Spider. Hopefully you guys did enjoy. If you want to see more content, please subscribe as I'm pushing for 400 subscribers. But anyways, see you guys in the next video.